In each of these, a regional kingdom hall office was set up to coordinate and assist the design and construction unique to that region. Mexico directs the work for Central America and the Caribbean, Brazil for South America, Germany for Eastern Europe and Russia, South Africa for the African continent, and Australia for the Pacific Islands and Asia. In total, there are some 60 branch offices involved, affecting over 100 countries. Under this regional direction, each country's branch office then sets up local construction teams. When the new construction program began in 1999, the need for kingdom halls in these places was estimated in the thousands. From the outset, the architects and engineers knew that simplified designs and construction methods would be desirable for building many halls in a short time.
If they need engineering, we ask them to do that locally so that a local engineer is familiar with what's needed. Then it's quite important that they build with local materials. We don't want to import things that we don't have to into these countries.
Today, the kingdom halls have a simpler layout and architecture. With that, we ended up economizing. The truth is that sometimes the brothers spent a lot of time on the decorative details, also a lot of money. And without those details, it got simpler. We saved money, time, and the brothers' work.
The advantage that we have in simplifying the halls is speed, and that helps the brothers to maintain their hall easily without many things, because we use local materials which are not too difficult to find in our surroundings.
Each country in the program has a few basic types of kingdom halls from which to choose. The differences between the designs are mostly based on whether the hall will be in an urban or a rural setting. Buildings are simplified in a variety of ways. In some rural halls, skylights provide lighting for the almost exclusively daytime meetings. In Africa, breeze blocks are used instead of windows, cutting expense and maintenance. The local congregations can request a hall under the program, but they must meet certain requirements. In general, they need at least 30 members, along with at least one elder. Although the congregations are made up of those with little means, they are asked to commit at least a modest amount of their own money to the project.
They pass a resolution to make a monthly contribution back to the fund, depending on their ability. So they are, over a long period of time, making a contribution to the fund, but simply wouldn't have enough money to build the building initially.
In rural Africa, obtaining land for a hall is often much easier than in urban areas.
First of all, they go to a headman of the village where that property is. Then they acquire a letter from the headman. Then they take that letter to the chief. Then a chief writes a letter and stamp it. That's enough for acquiring that property where to build a kingdom hall.
But you don't ever have to worry about losing that piece of ground, because everybody recognizes that he has the right to give you that piece of ground, and nobody will ever argue with it.
If their request is approved, the local congregation busies itself with making or gathering the necessary building materials. For a typical East African kingdom hall, it means mixing, molding, and baking approximately 35,000 bricks. The congregations gather the sand and break the stones used to make concrete. In East Africa, selecting a color for the kingdom hall is largely determined by the color of the soil that goes into the bricks. An outstanding example of preparation work was that of the Musunje Iwi congregation on Lake Malawi. All the materials had to be brought in by boat and carried by hand to the hilltop where the hall was to be built. After about 300 different trips, the 12 tons of building materials was moved more than 1,000 feet up the mountain.